With nearly $200 million in additional reserve surplus, we're able to do things that I think that we haven't been able to do in the past. And I think this is critical because we are start repairing and start today to make those efforts in areas that have been hit hardest because of the financial strains that have been on us. So our focus is clear, and I want to outline some of those priorities that we have and what we intend to do this session. Early childhood programs, education, public safety, and the well-being and health of New Mexicans is going to be our focus. I want to first begin with what we'll be taking up today, and that's to ensure that we're taking care of our nurses across the state of New Mexico. All of our communities, especially in the rural areas, depend on these nurses. Some will come into the state and provide care for all of our patients, and they've been able to do so because of a compact that we've been part of many years. This not only helps nurses that have come into our state, but also nurses that are from New Mexico who go to other states and to provide services for those areas. So what this will do is have the opportunity to address this immediately. The impact that would take place if this doesn't happen would be devastating. So what we're looking for this week, starting today, is to have legislation in place that would grandfather us in with this nurse licensure compact. During the interim, we've worked with both chambers, both sides of the aisle, and with the governor to ensure that we weren't going to have disruption of services, that we were going to have those nurses continue to provide that care, and to make sure that they don't have to go through the chaos of recertification. And I'm hopeful that this spirit of cooperation will be a recurring theme for this session. And then we will get on to the budget. Last year at this time, we spent weeks debating how we were going to address the issue of the shortfall. We had to make difficult decisions, and devastating cuts had to be made just to keep the lights on. We also had to endure some of the changes that occurred through line item vetoes that were unnecessary by the governor. We saw that a whole branch of government was eliminated, and we also saw that every higher ed institution across the state of New Mexico was defunded. But when we look at this and we see the possibilities that we have, what a difference that a year makes. And I think what our priorities are is to make sure that we can have a budget that works for the people of the state of New Mexico. So with the $6.26 billion budget that's been proposed by LFC, it's a 3% increase from last year. And we will begin the process of rebuilding and restoring critical areas that have all too often been accustomed to cuts. Well, it's not the time to come in as a spending spree. We are in a position to make smart moves that will help us get back, ready to rebuild, and ready for the future. And this recommendation from LFC already has strong bipartisan support. And to be honest with you, it's not even wildly different than what the governor has proposed. And I'm confident that together, we can work on passing a budget that accurately addresses the needs of the state and recognizes the great value we have for the people who do the work across our state, namely our educators and our state employees. In this coming session, we will also replenish funds that have had to be raided simply because of the shortfalls that we have. And we're going to get our reserves to a responsible level of nearly 9%. As far as public safety goes, I want to address that because I know a lot of time was spent on this today in the State of the State address. For 7 years now, we've had an executive whose myopic view has been a focus on crime. Public safety is a critical issue for us Democrats, but we have a very different view than the governor. While she solely focuses on punishment and prosecution, we believe that it's just as important to have prevention and rehabilitation as part of that equation. This will go further in breaking the cycle that has unfortunately left New Mexico as one of the most crime-ridden states in this nation. We believe that we need to get the most dangerous people off the streets, but we also need to get those who need the help into treatment. While increased funding for DAs is in order, we have to remember, in order to make that system work effectively, that we properly fund our courts and our public defenders as well. And we will look at new bills with penalties, but we will do so with an eye to ensure that there's a balance of preventative measures as well. Regarding bail reform, I was mentioned today, we have no intentions of doing any repealing or replacing. The measure was supported by 87% of voters and by the governor once upon a time. Yes, they need some refinement, to be sure. The fix is already in order, and they're falling into place. We will have an effective system that ensures the most violent criminals are kept off the streets while making sure that those who pose no risk are not detained solely because they cannot afford bail. Something that's near and dear to me and many of my colleagues behind me is education. And investing in education is investing in our future. And this is a top priority for us. We look at the entire spectrum from K-3+ to higher ed. The LSC budget proposes to put an additional $27 million in early childhood programs, including childcare and pre-K, as well as expanding the successful home visiting program. It's a good start, and it's a lift up for all educators. We heard today the discussion of third grade retention, and that's been something that we've heard over the last 7 State of the State addresses. And we still contend that intervention is always superior to retention. And we will continue to have those intervention opportunities as indicated by the LSC budget at the most critical stages of a child's life. We also heard much about exemplary, and we heard about evaluation systems. We know, and teachers across the state know, that that hasn't worked for the people of the state of New Mexico. And so we look forward in this new future to come in and have the opportunity to address this in a way that makes sense and is fair to all those involved. So it's time for a new direction in New Mexico, a new direction for education. As far as health goes, we know the uncertainty with the childhood insurance with CHIP at the federal level. We know what's taking place there. So we've put in an additional $35 million to assist with the Medicaid support. It's also time, when we talk about raises, it's also time that we recognize those individuals who have stood with us through the recessions and made New Mexico work. So we're recommending a 1% across the board increase for all public school teachers, educators, and state workers. I hope that this sends a clear message to our educators and state workers. We value your contributions, and thank you for the service to our state. Behind me are my colleagues who will be discussing, and you probably have some questions for them on bills that they may be carrying. I wanted to just address a couple bills to allow for questions for them as well that I'll be carrying that have a huge impact on the state. One was reducing auto theft. Another will be establishing net neutrality in New Mexico to ensure that our rates for internet aren't skyrocketing. And we will be talking about a tobacco tax to give $89 million additional dollars to our school systems in a much needed time. I think when we heard today some of the additional dollars that were discussed, we're not sure where those came from. But I do know one thing, that when additional 50,000 jobs were mentioned, I think it's important to mention the many jobs that were lost when the behavioral health systems were shut down across the state of New Mexico. It's also important to mention when vetoes to higher ed and cuts that have taken place, the amount of jobs that have been lost in the higher ed institutions. So just wanted to make sure that we bring some clarity to the picture from all points of view. In closing, together with my fellow senators and members of the House of Representatives, I'm confident that we're going to be able to work together to bring forward some substantial legislation that will help the people of New Mexico. And we have a great place to start from and common ground to work from. And I am confident that there's a brighter future for the people of our state, and change is just around the corner. But the secret to change is to focus all of our energy not on fighting the old, but on creating the new. And that's what we intend to do as we start the legislative session for 2018. Thank you for allowing us to be here, and we'll go ahead and take some questions from me or any of my members of the caucus to address any concerns that you may have or clarifications you may need.
Senator, how confident are you that with this bipartisan support you guys are getting, that you can override a potential veto or veto threats to some of these initiatives that you guys are proposing?
We showed that a year ago, that when we band together for the common good of New Mexico, that we have the ability to do an override, and so that's something that I think it would be on the table. But again, I think with the strong bipartisan support that's been given from our Legislative Finance Committee, both chambers, I think that we can have a budget that moves forward pretty quickly and works for our people.
You mentioned the tobacco tax. Do you foresee any other tax increase proposals?
I think that there'll probably be some other proposals. I'm not aware right offhand on which ones those might be. I know that the gas tax is often discussed as well, but I'm not real clear, Chris, on what those ones might be at this point.
Do you worry, given the governor's tone and tenor on that particular issue, that he might be spinning your wheels for it to go nowhere?
Well, I think what the need has been there, and we know that dollars are needed for the classroom. So again, you know, this may be a long shot, but it is our best shot to get additional dollars in. We did hear how there was supposedly so much more dollars within our surplus, and so I think that if there's a true investment to our school systems, to our state employees, and quite honestly, even our corrections departments who are continually struggling with understaffing and high vacancy rates, these are opportunities that we can have to move our budget forward and to set the stage for the future.
You mentioned the bipartisan support. How different is this from other sessions? I mean, the governor is on her way out, so she, of course, doesn't have the same pool. But can you characterize it? What's different about this session?
I think that we've been through a lot over the last 8 years. We hit the recession, and we're one of the states that has been very slow in coming out of this recession. And so I think that when you look at the opportunities that may be there, you see that at least on the budgets committee, that we see that we need to start doing things differently. We need to find a way to have some success, but at the same time, making sure that we can do it responsibly and keep those reserves at the levels they need to be.
The Supreme Court made some rulings clarifying the constitutional amendment. Does that mean that there is no need to pass a law that deals with pretrial detention rules, or is that something the Senate Democrats might still support?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm going to refer over to Senator Cervantes if you'd like to take that. Yeah.
So I think that the decisions by the Supreme Court defining dangerousness were very important. Again, we can't forget this constitutional amendment was designed to keep those dangerous defenders off the street in this pre-trial situation. And so clearly there's some tweaks that are needed. I think the Supreme Court took a big step forward. What's on us is to fund the system. And Senator Morales is absolutely right. It's the courts, it's the DAs, it's the public defenders. And so again, we're going to be looking at those. But this bail reform, our Chief Justice, who's in the same party as Governor Martinez, has called the most significant criminal justice reform since statehood. So the idea that we would repeal that, I think, is completely off the table.
Let's go for Senator Worth with Senator Payton. You guys made history yesterday with naming Mimi Stewart to a third leadership spot. This is the first time in our history we've had 2 women in the Senate leadership spot. Can you talk about the historical significance of that?
Well, yes, I guess I can. I guess I don't know why it is so significant that 2 women are there. I think we have the same kind of capabilities as the men have. And I think it's just we don't have the numbers in the Senate or in the House to do that. But I don't think that diminishes what our capabilities of being able to lead are. It doesn't mean that we're better. It doesn't mean they're better. It means that we all have an opportunity to do what we need to be able to do and do it well.
At the same time, we don't have any Hispanics in the top leadership positions. Is that a concern?
At the present time, we don't. We have had in the past, and I'm not sure if I go all the way back. I'm not sure if there were only Hispanics and no other people in the leadership, other ethnicities in the leadership. But I think we do try and make sure that we look at all ethnicities, and certainly want them to be, we have leaders, we have chairmanships that are Hispanic. We have the Native American, Senator Pinto, our longest serving senator, wants to serve Indian Affairs, and that's where he is, and does a fabulous job of that, as well as Senator Shindo. And Senator Shindo is vice chairman of corporations. Senator Sanchez is chairman of corporations. Senator Cervantes is chairman of conservation. So we do go across, I think, across all the colors and all the shapes and sizes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks, we got that nursing contact.
Thank you again for being here.
Right now.
I was down at the meeting and